My name is Maggie B. Jamar, and I am 28 years old. I refused to let my sister live with me, but my mother secretly gave her my spare key. I came home and found her stretched out in my living room like she owned the place, so I had the police remove her. Then she broke in again and stole my money and my tools. And before anyone tries to reduce this to siblings fighting, understand something. This wasn't one bad night. This was years of entitlement finally hitting a wall. I grew up in struggle. Real struggle. The kind that leaves you counting cereal bowls and pretending you're full so your younger siblings can eat. My dad bounced when I was 12, leaving my mom with 3 kids and debt that felt like it had teeth. I'm the oldest. Then there's my sister Jessica, 2 years younger than me, and my brother Tyler, 4 years younger. While my mom worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, I started grinding the moment I was old enough to pass as helpful. I got my first job at 14. Landscaping, warehouse shifts, moving furniture, anything that paid. In high school, I was the kid who worked weekends and summers while everyone else was at parties. I taught myself construction by watching, asking questions, and getting yelled at until I learned how to do it right. I got into project management through pure determination. I studied for certifications while working full-time at a lumberyard for barely above minimum wage. 6 long years of community college and night classes for a construction management degree because I paid my own way through everything. No student loans because I couldn't qualify. No family help because there wasn't any money, at least not for me. Every semester I saved thousands for tuition, books, and fees. I lived on cheap ramen, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever was on sale. I drove a beat-up car that broke down constantly and ate my savings in repairs. While other people were taking trips and making memories, I was working 60-hour weeks and studying on weekends. I missed parties, dates, vacations, basically every normal experience because I had one goal: get out, get stable, never be trapped again. It worked, eventually. I started pulling solid money, got my own place, built real savings, and bought a 3-bedroom house with a garage and workshop. Not because I wanted luxury, but because I wanted control. A home office for side consulting, a workshop where I could restore and build things with my hands. Everything arranged exactly how I wanted. Peace, designed on purpose. Jessica was the complete opposite of everything I represent. She's one of those Instagram influencer types with a few thousand followers who genuinely thinks she's famous. She bounces between an on and off boyfriend named Devin and whoever else will let her crash. She has never worked a real job longer than a blink. Every excuse in the book. Jobs are beneath her. Managers don't appreciate her potential. The hours don't fit her lifestyle. She's attractive, sure, and she uses that like currency, but her entitlement is a fire that burns through every room she enters. Tyler isn't much better, but he's less malicious. He's been finding himself in school forever, switching majors like outfits. He talks about creative vision and potential while mom pays his tuition, rent, car payment, phone bill, groceries, everything. If he holds a job for 4 months, it's a miracle. And whenever he quits, it's never his fault. It's the workplace that didn't understand him. Here's the part that made me furious for years. My mom enabled both of them like crazy. Always has. Probably always will. When I was 16, working 35 hours a week while keeping a high GPA, she'd still lecture me about family comes first. If I couldn't loan Jessica money for whatever she wanted that week, I was selfish. When Tyler crashed his car because he was texting while driving, my mom took out a loan she couldn't afford to buy him another one. But when I needed $600 for a certification exam that would guarantee a promotion, I had to beg, promise repayment, and practically sign my soul over. The message was clear. I was responsible, so I didn't deserve help. They were screw-ups, so they deserved unlimited support. 3 months ago, I achieved my dream and bought my house. Not a tiny condo, not a cramped apartment, a real house in a decent neighborhood. My sanctuary. The mortgage was manageable because I lived like a monk to save for the down payment. I invited the family over for a housewarming barbecue because, against my better judgment, some part of me still wanted them to be proud. Their reactions told me everything. Mom kept talking about how lucky I was, and how some people just get breaks, ignoring the years of sacrifice. Jessica spent the whole time taking selfies in different rooms and asking if she could use the house for photo shoots. Tyler cared more about my TV and gaming setup than my accomplishment. That should have been my warning sign. It wasn't. The real warning came when Jessica ran out of places to hide. About 7 weeks ago, Jessica's life imploded in the loudest way possible. She'd been staying with Devin in his studio apartment, and his parents were the ones paying for it because Devin was 25 and still living off their money while calling himself an entrepreneur. That arrangement was already unstable, but Jessica has a talent for taking unstable and lighting it on fire. Apparently, Devin's parents discovered Jessica had been stealing packages from neighbors, not accidentally grabbing the wrong box. Not a one-time mistake. She was following delivery trucks around the complex, lifting packages from doorsteps, then selling the contents online for quick cash. Devin's parents found out because a neighbor knocked on their door looking for a missing package with expensive electronics, and Devin's mom found the items in Jessica's car. They gave Devin an ultimatum on the spot. Jessica leaves immediately and permanently, or they cut off his rent and he gets evicted. Devin chose his monthly allowance over his girlfriend. Jessica was out. She tried her usual rotation strategy after that. Friends' couches, old hookups, random guys from dating apps. Nothing stuck because Jessica burns bridges faster than she builds them. She overstays her welcome, eats all your food, brings people over without asking, and turns any home into chaos within 48 hours. She ended up back at my mom's place temporarily, but that lasted 10 days. See, my mom had been dating a man named Richard for about a year. He's actually decent, master electrician, life together. Treats my mom well, but he doesn't tolerate nonsense. When Jessica started bringing random guys over at 2 a.m. for business meetings, left suspicious white powder residue in the bathroom, and stole cash from my mom's purse to buy new clothes, Richard put his foot down. Either Jessica goes permanently or he does. My mom chose Richard. Honestly, it was the smartest decision she'd made in years, but it meant Jessica was officially out of options. For the first time in her life, she was facing real homelessness. And that's when my phone rang. "Hey, big sis," Jessica said, voice sweet and fake, dripping with manipulation. "I'm in a really tough spot right now, and I was hoping my incredibly successful sister could help her little sister out during a difficult time." I knew exactly where it was going. "What do you need, Jess?" "Well," she said, stretching the word like she was building a story, "I just need somewhere to crash for a couple weeks while I get back on my feet. I've got some really promising modeling opportunities lined up, and a few potential interviews, so it would just be super temporary until—" "No." There was a beat of silence so sharp it almost felt like a slap. "What?" "I don't need to hear the rest of your pitch," I said. "The answer is no. You're not staying at my place." She immediately flipped into victim mode. "I can't believe you're being so mean and heartless. I'm your sister. I'm literally homeless, and you won't even help me." "You're homeless because you made terrible choices," I said. "That's not my responsibility to fix." "You have 3 whole bedrooms," she argued, voice rising. "You're being selfish with all that space." I kept my tone even, because Jessica thrives on escalation. "1 bedroom is mine. 1 is my office and gaming room where I work. 1 is my workshop storage where I keep thousands of dollars of tools and parts. There is no guest room because I don't want long-term guests. The whole point of buying my house was to have space I control." "Fine," she snapped. "I'll sleep on the couch. I'll be quiet. I'll be helpful. I'll cook and clean and do laundry." "Jessica," I said, voice hard now, "absolutely not. You've never been clean or quiet a single day in your life. Remember when you stayed at Tyler's place for 1 weekend and trashed it so badly he lost his security deposit?" Then came the tears, real sounding, trembling, dramatic. "I thought family was supposed to help each other." "When exactly were you there for me?" I asked quietly. "Because I remember working my rear end off while you got everything handed to you." She hung up with a sob like she was performing for an invisible audience. Exactly 25 minutes later, my mom called. "Maggie," she said, voice tight and controlled, pretending she was being reasonable. "I just spoke with Jessica. She's really struggling right now, and she could use some family support." "I offered to help her find an affordable place," I said. "I even offered to loan her a deposit if she got a job, but she's not staying at my house." "She just needs somewhere temporary," my mom insisted. "You have all that space sitting there empty." "It's not empty," I said. "It's mine." Mom cycled through guilt trips like a playlist. Family sticking together. How disappointed my dad would be if he could see me. How I was becoming cold and heartless, just like him. I stayed firm. Jessica was not moving in. End of discussion. I thought that settled it. It didn't, because Jessica doesn't respect no. And my mom, for all her talk about boundaries, has never respected mine when Jessica is involved. Last Tuesday, I came home from a long day around 6:45 p.m., exhausted, looking forward to a quiet evening. The moment I pulled into my driveway, I knew something was wrong. My front door was unlocked. My stomach dropped the second I noticed the door wasn't locked. I am obsessive about that door. Always have been. Lock, check, recheck. It's muscle memory. Seeing it slightly ajar felt like walking into a nightmare before the nightmare even announced itself. Then I smelled food. Not the comforting kind. Greasy takeout mixed with nail polish and something sweet and artificial. And I could hear noise upstairs. A TV. Laughter. I stepped inside slowly, heart pounding, keys clenched between my fingers like that was going to help if something went wrong. When I walked into the living room, I nearly blacked out from the shock. Jessica was sprawled across my leather couch in tiny shorts and a crop top, painting her nails bright pink like she'd been there all day. Netflix was playing on my 70-inch TV. My TV. Takeout containers were scattered across my coffee table, makeup spread over every surface, her clothes draped over my furniture like she owned the place. She didn't even look up. "Hey, big sis," she chirped. "Hope you don't mind. I ordered Thai food. I got you pad Thai too. It's in the kitchen getting cold." I stood there frozen. "What are you doing in my house?" "Oh," she said casually, finally glancing up. "Mom gave me the spare key from your kitchen drawer. She figured you'd eventually come around once you saw how much I really needed this place." I felt something crack in my chest. I rushed into the kitchen. It looked like a tornado had hit. Dirty dishes everywhere. My meal prep for the entire week was gone. Empty containers stacked like trash. My granite countertops were covered in her makeup, hair tools, brushes. Upstairs was worse. She'd taken over my workshop storage room, shoving my expensive tools and vintage motorcycle parts into random corners to make space for a full makeup station. A ring light was set up on my workbench. Clothes were hanging from restoration equipment. Parts I inherited from my grandfather were tossed into boxes like they were junk. "Get out," I said, voice shaking now. "Get out of my house right now." She rolled her eyes. "Relax. It's temporary. Just until I get back on my feet." "I already told you no." "I didn't break in," she snapped. "Mom gave me the key, so it's legal." "Mom doesn't live here," I said. "She has no right to give you access to my house." "You're being dramatic," she sighed. "I'm not hurting anything." "You ate my food, trashed my house, and moved into my space without permission." She laughed. "You're not going to call the cops on your own sister." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Her face went white instantly. She panicked, tried texting Mom and Tyler, tried crying, tried bargaining. Then she switched tactics and actually tried flirting, offering to introduce me to her friends if I just let her stay. It was grotesque. When the police arrived, she played the victim hard, said it was a family misunderstanding, that she was just visiting. The officers asked for proof she lived there. Lease, mail, utility bills. She had nothing. They told her to leave immediately or be arrested for criminal trespassing. It took her almost 2 hours to pack. She dragged it out, forgetting things, crying, trying to guilt me one last time. Before she left, she looked me dead in the eye and hissed, "You're going to regret this. Family doesn't forget." She keyed my truck on the way out. The next morning, I changed every lock, installed security cameras, motion sensors, spent over $1,000 for peace of mind, and didn't regret a cent. That night, my mom called screaming that I'd traumatized Jessica, that I'd destroyed the family. She claimed Jessica was sleeping in her car and terrified. Later, Tyler admitted Jessica was actually staying with an older guy she met online. The whole story was a lie. 4 days later, my workshop was broken into. They stole nearly $3,000 worth of tools, including irreplaceable parts from my grandfather. My cameras caught everything. Jessica and Devin loading my stuff into a truck at 1:30 in the morning. I pressed full charges. Jessica was arrested 6 hours later. And that's when the family war truly began. When Jessica got arrested, the family completely lost their minds. She spent 3 nights in county jail before my mom somehow scraped together $5,000 for bail, money she absolutely did not have. I found out later she maxed out 2 credit cards and borrowed against whatever savings she had left. The moment Jessica was released, my mom went into full scorched earth mode. She called everyone. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, church friends, old neighbors, anyone who would listen. She told a version of the story where I was a cold, money-obsessed monster who sent my own sister to jail for asking for help. Jessica leaned into it hard, painting herself as a fragile victim who'd been betrayed by her successful sibling. Tyler blocked me on everything and posted a long Facebook rant about how blood meant nothing to some people and how ashamed he was to share DNA with someone so heartless. Uncle Bob called me no better than our deadbeat father. Cousin Danny said I'd forgotten where I came from. None of them offered Jessica a place to stay. Not one. It was surreal watching people condemn me for refusing to sacrifice my home while doing absolutely nothing themselves. I blocked most of them, changed my phone number, focused on work, started hitting the gym harder to burn off the stress. Slowly rebuilt my workshop. Life got quieter without the constant chaos, and for a while it felt like I could finally breathe. Then Tyler called. It was around 11 at night. His voice sounded wrecked. "Everything's falling apart. I don't know what to do anymore." Turns out my mom had been paying for everything in Tyler's life. Rent, car, insurance, tuition, groceries, spending money. After bailing out Jessica and paying legal fees, she was broke. Credit cards maxed. Mortgage behind. Tyler had been kicked out of school for unpaid tuition. His car had been repossessed. He was working part-time at Target, barely scraping by. "I'm about to be homeless," he said. "I just need help getting back on my feet." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "What about everything you posted about me?" I asked, "calling me garbage." "I was angry," he said weakly. "I thought you were being cruel. Now I think maybe Jessica wasn't telling me the truth." He begged to stay in my extra room, promised rent, chores, boundaries, everything Jessica had promised too. "I'll think about it," I said. I never called him back. A month later, I found out exactly why Jessica had gone so quiet. I was out to dinner celebrating a promotion with my boyfriend when I spotted Cousin Danny at the bar. He looked awful. He came over, shaking, and apologized for everything. Jessica had stayed with him briefly and robbed him blind. Stolen electronics, jewelry, cash. She'd also been using my name around town to vouch for her character. Then Danny dropped the bomb. Jessica had robbed his 87-year-old grandmother, convinced her there was a medical emergency, took her grocery and medication money. Jessica had been arrested again, this time for shoplifting and fraud. She listed me as her emergency contact. Everyone was broke now. Everyone wanted me to save them. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was inevitable. Natural consequences had finally arrived. The calls didn't stop after that. They multiplied. My mom called first, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. She finally admitted she'd been wrong about Jessica, wrong about everything, begged me to help save the house from foreclosure. She said she'd cut Jessica off permanently. She swore she'd change. She promised anything she thought I wanted to hear. I listened quietly, holding the phone away from my ear as her voice cracked and pleaded. When she finished, there was a long pause. "Where's Jessica right now?" I asked. "Still in jail," she whispered. "The bail's $12,000 this time. No one has it." "Good," I said softly. "Maybe this time she'll face real consequences." Tyler's call came later. He sounded thinner somehow, like life had finally caught up to him. He told me he was sleeping in his car, showering at a 24-hour gym, working every shift he could get. He said he'd sign any contract I wanted. He said he'd pay me back with interest. He said he finally understood what independence meant. "I forgave you a long time ago," I told him. "I just don't trust you." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just said he understood and promised to earn it back. The extended family calls were almost laughable if they hadn't been so transparent. Uncle Bob needed help with his own bills after loaning Jessica money. Cousin Danny wanted help replacing what she stole. Everyone suddenly believed me now that they'd been personally burned. Everyone finally saw Jessica for what she was. It just took her robbing half the family to get there. For 2 weeks, I listened to every voicemail, every apology, every promise. Then I deleted them all without responding. Yesterday, Tyler called with the final update. Jessica had pleaded guilty, multiple charges, theft, fraud, elder abuse, 14 months in state prison, plus restitution and community service. Even with early release, she'd still be paying for her choices for years. "How's Mom?" I asked. "Broken," he said, but finally seeing the truth. "And you?" "I'm renting a room," he said. $380 a month. Working 2 jobs. It's not much, but it's mine. That was the first thing he'd said in years that sounded real. When the call ended, I sat in my workshop surrounded by everything I rebuilt with my own hands. Tools replaced, projects organized, peace restored. My house was quiet, safe, mine. I didn't feel victorious, I felt finished. Jessica was where she belonged. Tyler was learning what accountability meant. My mom was facing the consequences of years of enabling. And me. I was finally free of the weight I'd been carrying since childhood. Sometimes the most satisfying ending isn't revenge. It's watching people face the reality you warned them about all along, while you move forward without them. I thought the story ended when Jessica was sentenced. I really did. Prison feels like a period at the end of a sentence, final and unavoidable. But families like mine don't stop just because the consequences finally arrive. They just change shape. About 3 months after Jessica went away, I got an email from a number I didn't recognize. No subject line, just my name in the body, spelled wrong, followed by a single sentence. I hear you're doing better without us. It was my mother. I stared at the screen for a long time before opening the rest. The message was long, rambling, half apology, and half justification. She wrote about how quiet the house was now, how she didn't recognize herself anymore without someone to rescue, how she'd been going to therapy because the court required it as part of Jessica's case, and how the therapist kept asking her why she felt more responsible for fixing her children's messes than protecting the one who never made them. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for help. That was new. Instead, she asked a question that landed heavier than any demand ever had. Do you think there's a way back from this? I didn't answer right away, not because I wanted to punish her, but because for the first time in my life, I was answering from a place that wasn't fear or obligation. I talked it over with my boyfriend that night while we sat on the back porch, legs tangled together, listening to the cicadas hum in the trees. He didn't tell me what to do. He just asked one thing. If you open the door again, will it cost you your peace? That question stuck. A week later, I replied. Short, clear. No emotion dressed up as kindness. I'm open to contact. I'm not open to being responsible for anyone else's life. Therapy needs to continue. Boundaries aren't negotiable. If that doesn't work for you, I understand. She didn't respond for 2 days. When she did, it was just 4 words. I understand. I'm trying. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relief. I just felt steady. Tyler checked in occasionally after that. He never asked for money, never hinted. He sent photos of his tiny rented room, proud of the mismatched furniture he'd paid for himself. Once, he sent me a picture of his first paycheck from his second job with the caption, "Didn't realize how good this would feel." I replied with a thumbs up and nothing else, and that was enough. Jessica wrote me one letter from prison. It was 6 pages long, mostly excuses, mostly blame. She said prison was unfair. She said everyone abandoned her. She said I ruined her life. Then, buried halfway through the 4th page, was a single line that almost made me laugh. If you just let me stay, none of this would have happened. I folded the letter back up and put it in a box I keep for things I don't need to carry anymore. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. I still have moments where guilt creeps in, where that old programming whispers that I should fix things, smooth things over, sacrifice more. But now I recognize that voice for what it is. Conditioning, not conscience. These days, my house feels like a home instead of a battlefield. My workshop is finished. My savings are rebuilding. My relationship is calm in a way I never thought possible. No chaos, no emergencies, no manipulation disguised as love. And here's the strangest part. I don't feel angry anymore. I feel done. Done being the safety net. Done being the fallback plan. Done being the only adult in a room full of people who refuse to grow up. Some families call that abandonment. I call it survival. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that boundaries don't destroy families. They expose them. And sometimes what breaks was never healthy enough to survive honesty in the first place. The real ending didn't come with another phone call or another crisis. It arrived quietly, the way real endings usually do. 6 months passed, then 9. Life filled in the space where chaos used to live. My mornings settled into a rhythm. I never rushed anymore. Coffee brewed slowly. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor. The house smelled like wood and oil from the workshop instead of anxiety. I stopped flinching when my phone buzzed. Tyler kept his distance, but in a good way. He sent updates without expectation. A photo of a toolbox he bought secondhand. A message saying he passed his first semester without Mom paying a dime. Once he texted, "I finally get why you said no." I didn't respond right away. When I did, it was simple. Proud of you. That was all he needed. My mom stayed in therapy. I could tell because her messages stopped circling back to guilt. She talked about learning to sit with discomfort instead of fixing it, about how silence didn't mean abandonment, about how love didn't require constant sacrifice from the same person. We met for coffee once, in public, on neutral ground. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't bring up Jessica except to say she was writing letters every week and not getting replies back anymore. That told me everything. Jessica tried once more. A call from the prison social worker asking if I'd consider helping with re-entry housing. I declined. Not angrily, not defensively, just clearly. I'd already helped in every way that mattered. Consequences aren't cruelty, they're reality. The house never went into foreclosure. My mom downsized. Tyler didn't move back in with her. That mattered more than any apology. It meant patterns were breaking instead of repeating. One night, months later, my boyfriend and I sat on the garage floor, backs against the workbench, sharing cheap beer and listening to music. He looked around at the tools, the organized shelves, the calm. "You know," he said, "this place feels earned." That word hit harder than anything else. Earned. I didn't earn my peace by being generous. I earned it by being honest, by saying no, by letting people feel the consequences of their own choices without cushioning the fall. Family didn't disappear from my life. It just changed shape. Smaller, quieter, healthier, and the ones who stayed learned to knock instead of barge in. If you're wondering whether it's worth it to stand your ground, even when everyone tells you you're selfish, here's the truth. The people who benefit from you having no boundaries will always call you cruel when you finally draw one. But the life you build after that silence, the calm, the stability, the sense of self that finally has room to breathe, that part is priceless. I didn't think there would be anything left to say after that. In my mind, the story had wrapped itself up neatly. People faced consequences. Patterns shifted. I moved on. But life has a way of circling back one last time, not to reopen wounds, but to show you how far you've actually come. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office finishing up paperwork when an unfamiliar number popped up on my phone. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail, but something about the timing made me answer. It was Jessica. Her voice sounded different. Not dramatic, not sharp, just flat. She told me she'd been transferred to a lower security facility and had been attending mandatory counseling sessions. She said the counselor suggested she reach out to people she'd hurt, not to ask for forgiveness, but to acknowledge what she'd done. She paused for a long time before continuing, like she wasn't used to letting silence exist without filling it with excuses. "I don't expect anything from you," she said. "I just wanted you to know. I finally understand why you said no." I didn't interrupt her. That alone felt like progress. She talked about how being cut off forced her to confront herself for the first time in her life, how everyone she relied on eventually disappeared once there was nothing left to take, how prison stripped away the illusion that she was special or untouchable. She didn't apologize the way people usually do, wrapped in self-pity. She simply stated facts. She hurt people. She used them. She destroyed trust. "I don't know if I can ever fix it," she admitted, "but I'm trying to not be that person anymore." When the call ended, I sat there staring at my desk, surprised by the lack of emotion rushing through me. No anger, no satisfaction, no urge to rescue, just acknowledgement. Her growth, if it was real, no longer depended on me, and that was the point. Later that week, Tyler came by the house for the first time. He stood on the porch awkwardly, hands in his pockets, waiting for me to invite him in. I didn't rush. I let him stand there long enough to understand that this was different now. When I finally opened the door, he smiled nervously. "I won't stay long," he said. "I just wanted to say thank you for not saving me." We sat in the kitchen, talking about ordinary things. Work, bills, plans, no guilt, no nostalgia traps. When he left, he hugged me once, carefully, like someone who finally understood boundaries weren't walls, they were guidelines. That night, I realized something important. Closure isn't a dramatic confrontation or a perfect apology. It's the moment you recognize that someone else's growth no longer requires your suffering. My life now is quiet in the best way. I wake up without dread. I make plans without calculating who might need something from me. I give help when I choose to, not when I'm pressured. My relationship is built on mutual respect, not obligation. My home feels safe, not conditional. Family still exists in my life, just without the chaos that once defined it, and the ones who couldn't adapt fell away on their own. If there's one final lesson in all of this, it's this. Saying no doesn't make you heartless, it makes you honest. And honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, is the only foundation strong enough to build a life on.